Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I want you to picture a stretch of highway just outside a small desert town, the kind of place where the sun seems to bleach everything it touches and the wind never really stops moving. The road cuts straight through open land, and the only sounds most days are engines, wind, and the occasional cry of a hawk overhead. On this particular afternoon, the town was hosting its annual biker rally, a loud, proud event that brought in riders from all over the state. Chrome gleamed under the sun, leather vests creaked as men and women moved around, and laughter rolled through the air in deep, confident bursts. Now into this scene walked a teenage girl, no more than 16 or 17. She was small, with a frame that still carried that in-between look of someone not quite a child anymore, but not fully grown either. Her boots were scuffed, her jeans faded, and over her shoulders she wore a black biker jacket that was clearly too big for her. The sleeves hung past her wrists, and the shoulders sat wide, like it belonged to someone else. Someone bigger. Someone older. She walked alone. At first, nobody paid her much attention. Biker rallies are full of strange sights, and a lone kid didn't seem worth a second glance. But as she moved closer to the main group of riders parked near the diner, a few heads started to turn. One of the bikers, a tall man with a thick gray beard and sunglasses perched on his head, let out a short laugh and nudged the guy next to him. "Kid's lost," he said loudly, not bothering to lower his voice. Another biker looked her up and down and smirked. "Nice jacket," he added, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Steal that from your dad." A couple of them laughed. Not cruel laughter, at least not intentionally, but the kind that comes from people who think they own a space and don't expect to be challenged. To them, this rally was their world, and this girl didn't seem to fit. The teenage girl kept walking. Her face didn't change much. If she heard them, she didn't react. She walked with her shoulders straight and her chin slightly lifted, like she was holding herself together with sheer will. She stopped near the edge of the parking lot, close enough to hear the engines revving, but far enough not to be in the way. More comments came. "Hey sweetheart," one biker called out, a grin spreading across his face. "That jacket's older than you are." Another laughed. "Bet it weighs more than she does." A few others chuckled, and the sound bounced off the diner walls. It was easy for them. They were surrounded by friends, by noise, by confidence built over decades. She was just one girl in an oversized jacket. But then something changed. One biker, an older man with weathered hands and a posture that suggested years on the road, squinted as the girl turned slightly. His eyes narrowed, focusing on the back of her jacket. The laughter around him faded into the background as he took a step closer, his boots crunching softly on gravel. "Hold on," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. On the back of the jacket, partially faded but unmistakable, was a patch. It wasn't flashy or new. It wasn't bright or stitched with trendy designs. It was old, worn at the edges, the thread fraying slightly. But anyone who had spent enough years riding knew exactly what it was. The patch belonged to a club that no longer existed. And not just any club. This was a legendary group of riders who had been active decades ago. Known not for chaos or crime, but for loyalty, sacrifice, and a code that went deeper than leather and steel. They were riders who had shown up when towns were flooded, when wildfires raged, when soldiers came home broken and forgotten. They were the kind of bikers who didn't talk about what they did. They just did it. And this patch was not something you bought. You earned it. The older biker felt his throat tighten. He stepped closer, his voice suddenly serious. "Where did you get that jacket?" he asked. The girl turned to face him. Up close, they could see her eyes were tired, but steady. She didn't flinch at the attention. "It was my dad's," she said quietly. The laughter died instantly. A few bikers exchanged glances. The man with the gray beard took off his sunglasses, his expression shifting from amusement to confusion. "Your dad," he repeated. "Who was your dad?" She hesitated for just a moment, then answered. She said his name. For a heartbeat, nobody spoke. Then one biker swore under his breath. Another took a slow step back, like he'd been hit in the chest. The older man who had first noticed the patch lowered his head slightly, a gesture of respect so subtle most people would have missed it. "That's not possible," someone whispered. "He died years ago." The girl nodded. "I know." Silence spread across the parking lot. Engines idled, but even they seemed quieter now. The men who had laughed just moments earlier suddenly looked uncomfortable, their bravado draining away. Her father's name carried weight. He had been one of the best riders in that club. More than that, he had been known as someone who never left a brother behind. Stories about him were told in hushed tones around campfires and long rides. Stories of nights spent helping strangers, of dangerous roads taken without hesitation. And now here was his daughter, standing alone, wearing his jacket. One biker cleared his throat. "What brings you here?" he asked, his voice softer now. The girl looked around at the bikes, the diner, the open road stretching beyond. "This was his favorite rally," she said. "He used to bring me when I was little. I don't remember much. Just the noise, the smell of gas. Him lifting me onto the seat." Her voice wavered, just slightly, but she kept going. "He passed away last year. I found the jacket in a box. I thought maybe if I came here, I'd feel closer to him. No one laughed now. The man with the gray beard rubbed his face, suddenly, unsure of himself. We didn't know, he said. It wasn't an excuse. Just the truth. She nodded again. I didn't expect you to. Another biker, one of the younger ones, spoke up. He saved my life once, he said quietly. Didn't even know my name. Just showed up when I needed help. More voices joined in, one after another. Stories poured out, memories shared openly, some of them emotional, some filled with pride. Each story painted a clearer picture of the man who had once worn that jacket properly. Sleeves fitting just right, shoulders broad enough to carry its weight. The teenage girl listened, tears forming in her eyes, but she didn't wipe them away. She stood there, absorbing every word like it was a gift. Finally, the older biker stepped forward. You shouldn't be standing alone, he said. Not here. Not wearing that. He turned and waved to the others. Without a word, they moved, making space among their bikes. Someone pulled out a stool. Another offered her a cold drink. The same men who had laughed earlier now looked at her with something closer to reverence. One biker knelt slightly, so he was at eye level with her. Your family, he said simply. She blinked, clearly surprised. I am Tsani nodded. That patch says so. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, the rally continued, but something had shifted. The girl sat among them, listening to stories, asking questions, laughing softly at moments she could finally imagine. They told her about rides her father had taken, about jokes he'd made, about the way he used to ride at the front of the group, like he belonged there. At one point, she stood up and took off the jacket, holding it carefully. It's still too big, she said, a small smile breaking through. The older biker smiled back. It'll fit someday, he replied, and when it does, you'll wear it, right? Before the rally ended, they lined up their bikes. One by one, engines roared to life. The sound was thunderous, powerful, and strangely comforting. They told her to stand in the middle, jacket draped over her arms. This one's for him, someone shouted. They revved their engines in unison, a tribute that echoed across the open land. The girl closed her eyes, letting the sound wash over her, feeling closer to her father than she had in years. When the noise finally died down, she opened her eyes and saw something she hadn't expected. Respect. Real, undeniable respect. As she walked away later that evening, jacket folded carefully against her chest. Nobody laughed. Nobody mocked. They watched her go in silence, heads nodding, hearts heavy but full, and the lesson lingered long after the dust settled. You never really know someone's story by looking at them. You don't know what they carry, what they've lost, or what they're honoring just by showing up. That teenage girl didn't need to say a word to prove herself. The patch did that for her. Sometimes, the quietest presence in the room carries the loudest legacy. And sometimes, laughter stops the moment respect finally walks in.